I think it's still recording video.
That's fine. I look good anyway, so I'm assuming you're recording me too. Who knows? Pernell's like, ha ha ha, you're a jerk.
Don't say that. I'm gonna keep laughing though.
I think it's just recording my Twitch splash page.
Oh, that's fine too. Hello and welcome to Rhythm and Pixels, a video game music podcast. This is episode 36-8, and we are your hosts. My name is Rob Nichols.
And I'm stifling my laughter from earlier.
It's stifled. You just guffawed. Total guffaw. Every week we listen to great video game music from all consoles and all generations, and sometimes we come on with a guest, and we have a little... you have some history with this guest, right?
I do,
all right,
indeed.
Why don't you give him an intro?
Well, this is a friend of mine I've known for a long time back in the old Chicago days, the Midwest travel trips and ASIN and whatnot. Big friends in the RPG scene. We co-hosted a panel at Anime Central for many years called the Turn-Based Critics. In general, we just kind of banter back and forth, but then we kind of reconnected through this scene because he found the podcast. I found his streaming he does over Twitch. He does a lot of different video games, and then we discuss things, which led to a bit of a history there too. But now he kind of hangs out and we chat with him on a regular basis, and he's actually on the show to have verbal dialogue, which is nice. His name is Musashi219, the wise guy on the actual listing of patron supporters and friends. But his actual name, if you want me to say it, let me know, because I'll stop.
Yeah, you can say it.
We say your name at the end. We say your name at the end.
I am not a man of mystery.
You might say I worked on the campaign. Hi, Mr. Smithers.
I always let Pernell introduce himself because I always come in with my full name. And I realize that, like, as a cis white guy on the internet, that's a privilege. But, like, for anybody else, I'm like, you just say whatever you want. It's up to you guys.
What a funny thing about it is that we've had that period where, like, some jerk didn't like what I had to say about in the name thing, so he tracked me down just to blast the show. So it does happen.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people on Twitch who are like, don't say my name. Do not say, like, my actual name. Like, I'm, Cool Guy 9000 or whatever. I'm like, okay. Like, look, I know that you're Bob, but okay. Like, I'll give you that.
I like Cool Guy 1000, man. That's a
cool one. It's like a robot automata. I'm sent to the from the future to let you know you're still cool.
Still cool.
Yeah, there's people I follow on Twitch. I don't know their name. I have no idea who they are. It's just a user handle. So I'm like, okay.
Honestly, we have friends and listeners to this show whose names we don't know to this day, too. It's interesting.
Sure.
You just get so used to it, right? Like, do you find yourself just being like discussing people that you follow on an occasional basis? Like, oh yeah, we go way back, me and Thimble Toss 56. Like we go way back. Yeah, we talk about games all the time. What's his actual name? He's Thimble Toss to me.
I feel like the majority of people I know are IRL folks. Mm-hmm. So it's like I know who they actually are. I have a face to go with a name. And yeah, I just keep it all together. But like every now and then, it's like I'll get people who like are on my channel or whatever. It's like I don't know who you are. I don't know what you look like. But okay, whatever. Thank you for the support. It's much appreciated.
Absolutely.
So yeah, Pernell and I go back like 15 years. We met in, I remember this. It was 2007 at Anime Reactor.
Wow. Oh, Purple Hotel.
So you guys,
they weren't in the Purple Day, just burned out.
No,
so you guys go back.
The Purple Hotel have been condemned.
You guys go back like car seats.
Yes, way back. Still can't support my legs, back. But they go way back. But yeah,
yes, I remember people hyping Pernell up to me like he's a super cool dude. You guys are gonna get along really well. Like he's really big into RPGs. And then I met this colossus of a man. That was the running joke. And yeah, Pernell and I have been cool ever since. So
absolutely, and honestly, like the fact that like he was rolling with me hardcore on like RPG talk too, because let's be honest here, you got cats out there where if you talk games with them, they immediately start beating their chest and flexing. Look, you don't know RPGs like I know RPGs because the real truth is they don't get time for that. Oops, bleep that please. But in actuality, what you want out of that kind of conversation is you just want somebody who's passionate about the product, but not looking to get some flex points off of you by getting something right or wrong. You just want to have a conversation.
It's not appealing. I mean, even more recently, I had somebody show up like when I was streaming Octopath Traveler 2, and they're like, oh, at this point of the game, I had done all these things. I'm like, that's great. I mean, it's 8 different characters. You can play the game however you want. So, like, congratulations. It took me 30 minutes to beat a boss. It took you 20. Who cares?
Let's shift the focus onto like a healthy community. Healthy communities here. This
yes.
I would say the VGM appreciation community is generally pretty solid, at least on our Discord. I've noticed. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what has brought all of us together.
Absolutely.
Today.
So I will say this though, even though we were just saying, when we started doing the turn-based critics stuff, what we started to come across is that there are actually a lot of pretty genuine, like, other, RPG discussers as well.
Okay.
Passionate people.
Yeah.
Like, because what the panel was, like, I want to say it even just got sparked because
the way you describe it is like you like just shouting at everybody.
Well, because that's what I do. I mean, you can't fault me for that.
I think I can give a pretty good oral history.
Go for it.
To break this down real quick.
The turn-based critics.
Yeah. So I am not a founding member. I was brought in the following year because the first panel I attended as like a friend and just an attendee, and it was kind of a mess, like a lot of people shouting at one another, and like I had previously moderated panels on, like, I used to do one with a friend called Video Gaming for the Anime Enthusiast, so it was like talking about import games and games that tied into anime, and so I had some background in it. And they were like, well, hey, like, you have some background, you've got, like, a personality for it. Could you moderate for us? I'm like, yeah, sure. And I got brought on, and there was still a good amount of shouting. But, I mean, the intention of the panel initially was, let's talk to people about RPGs that are not Final Fantasy. Because everybody knows what Final Fantasy is, and there's this wealth of games out there. So let's educate about that. And it was originally like 90s, and then it became everything. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that every year, and this got progressively loose as time went on, like we would try and like, all right, well, we want to talk about this game and this game and this game. That didn't happen. What it became was an audience of people. I want to know what you think about Legend of the Dragoon, and I want to know what you think about Persona.
I was like, yep,
and
I let them know.
The thing is, we would just... It was in a way kind of like just comedy, because it was us giving takes or hot takes on games, and I won't curse, because I know this is a family-friendly podcast.
Because Pernell already popped that bottle.
Yeah. But I mean, our intention at the time was really to be like, being able to tell an audience person, like, really, you like this game, hey, go F yourself, but from a place of love, from a place of appreciation that we could all laugh about. Like, really? Like, you think, like, and I say Legend of the Dragoon because I hate that game. But, like, yeah, like, and the funny thing is, people would respond to that. Like, the audience, like, everyone would crack up. We'd all have a good time. We almost never got walkouts, except for, I remember one year some girl got really mad that we dragged like Final Fantasy VIII.
Yep. I do remember that.
Yeah, like she stood up like 10 minutes in, was like, go F yourselves, and walked out. And I'm like, well, first casualty of the night, folks. But yeah, I mean, we wanted to start off as a more of like an educational, here we're going to talk about all these games. And while we got to some of them, a lot of it just became like, what do you want to talk about? You want to talk about this? All right, we'll talk about this.
Yep.
And we could go for 2-3 hours without slowing.
They would kick us out because like, okay, now we actually do need the room, so you guys got to go.
I've been co-hosting with Pernell for 8 years. I believe he could do that by himself.
And it continued. The crazy thing was, it continued to get bigger and bigger to the point where it started in like a room of 50 people. Within 2 years, we were in a ballroom on a Saturday night with 400.
Wow. Yeah, we had a lot of people.
And we had a decent following. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's
and
funny.
We would do giveaways, guess that tune and all.
That's how it happens. Like people go to cons and they're like, "Oh, did you hear about this one thing? Oh, you missed it. It was a lot of fun." And the next year, everyone's like, "Oh, we should definitely go to this thing again." And you get more and more people to come see you.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I think it was just, I think the title alone would catch people's attention, because it was like RPGs that don't start with Final Fantasy. And I mean, we branched out, like we did a Final Fantasy panel one year, we did like a survival horror adventure panel one year. So I mean, we did kind of expand as time went on. But yeah, I mean, people would just show up and like, these guys talk a bunch of smack about RPGs, talk about what they love, and then just have a good time. And we were sharing memes before memes were a big thing. Our buddy Rob, ROB, he was kind of like the curator of that kind of content.
Yeah, he would just show up with like a drive. Like, here's all the memes I produced or found.
Oh man, so a little plug for our show. So, Too Many Games is happening again this year at the end of June, and we'll be doing our show on Friday night. It'll be around 5 p.m.
Okay.
Right. And so...
Well, if I'm saying like, oh, is that 5? Okay, me set my watch.
I don't remember. Honestly, I forgot. I took the day off. Well, anyway, so you said like you guys like the name turn-based critics or the name like RPGs that don't start with Final Fantasy. I would bring people in. And I was thinking about that. Every year, I'm like, I'll just put the name of the show, and that is going to be what's on the flyer, right? Or that's what's going to be on the program. And I don't think that's working out. So this year, I put on the program the Great Mega Man ranking because people love to rank stuff.
That's right. Your Robot Master is so big that
S tier, D tier, what's A tier, what's B tier, and we're gonna be like Quick Man, Top Man, all that. Man,
all at the bottom.
All the men.
I definitely think that. As someone who's done a lot of panels over time, I definitely think like giving the audience a little taste as opposed to just a name helps a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So
people. I mean, granted, like Ascent and stuff would put like a blurb about us that we usually wrote, but it'd be like just looking at like, oh, what's going on? 11 o'clock at Saturday night. It's turn-based critics present RPGs that don't like. It tells you what you're going to get into.
What I learned,
and you can see by it being a large block that like, oh, it's like a long thing. It's a commitment. It's not some little throwaway 30-minute talk about
They'll be there
Gundam.
for a while, and you're going to get It's so funny because like I'll put the information. I'll send it to these people who are hosting the panels or running the panels at the conventions, and I always think like, oh, they want to know about us, but really they're taking all that information and sticking it on the program, and I'm like, well, now I got to change that. I've never got a chance to change that, so now I know.
They don't want the history of the show. They want us,
except for like the stuff we did in Philly, the Philly Podfest stuff, because I feel like that was different. That was a bunch of people doing movie podcasts.
And then we showed up.
And like murder show podcast, and then us. We're like, okay, thanks for coming. We're going to listen to some Mario Bros.
There was no Mario Bros. On that.
Anyway, so we have the classic duo from the turn-based critics. Today we're going to be talking about and listening to games with great turn-based battle.
Music or in general, we'll figure it out when we choose the tracks and put them on for your listening ears to enjoy.
We'll fix it in post, and you'll get it later.
Hey. I don't know about you two, but my tracks don't need any fixing.
No, you know what? I've only got 2 days to edit, so don't worry about it. Because I ain't going to edit anything. This whole year has been unfiltered.
I picked turn-based RPGs. I remember a while ago, like when you had like that kind of shout-out episode to TBC, like Rob made the joke, like, you guys were called the turn-based critics. Not a lot of turn-based games. So I had to make sure, commit to the bit. Like, these are these picks.
There are so many. The funny part is, I want to say, and then we should probably get in some tracks, that there was a period where they were, maybe still in it, where they were trying to phase them out. Like, they were like, no, people don't have the energy for that anymore. The attention spans for turn-based combat are gone.
Well,
so now we need everything.
Squaresoft certainly thinks so.
That's the thing. Even Square not anymore, just for Final Fantasy for some reason. But they've been doing a lot of like turn-based revivals too.
Oh, the Octopath is Square, right?
Yeah.
Octopath, Triangle Strategy. What is it? Diafeld Chronicle. Like, they're putting them out, but yeah, like their big flagship. Final Fantasy's like, oh yeah, we gotta do what 15 did and all that. Like,
I know. Like, I want to get back into that world. I want to find a new RPG game that I can sit down with my wife and my baby and like just kind of enjoy. But I feel like the turn-based battle is what I'm looking for, because I can't just be on ready to do action battle all the time.
Octopath Traveler 2. Like, I'm sure it'll come up, at other points in the episode.
It's on PlayStation now, so I'm thinking.
It is.
I was thinking
it's on PlayStation. It's on Switch. Like I said before, like I put 115 hours into it, and I kid you not, I've already thought about like I want to replay this.
Wow.
How do you feel about that? For me, you know me better than Chris. Chris doesn't know me.
Well, it really
you don't know me.
It depends really. Like, so You heard the number Chris said.
I heard that number.
115 hours. Now,
but Chris,
I want to clarify something.
Deep
real
dive,
quick.
right? Deep dive.
I want to clarify something real quick. That's just my number. Like, if you go to, like, how long to beat, I think most people are putting up 60 to 70 in general. Like, that was just, like, I enjoyed running around and fighting stuff and looking for things and trying to do all these little side quests.
don't get me wrong, and I get that, too. It's
so
like everybody does a little different.
60 to 70 hour game is pretty good. That's like a couple of years for me.
Yeah, so the thing to keep in mind there with that kind of stuff is, and it goes along with what Chris just said, it's not just the time duration, too. It's also... like, if you ever have to retry things, because you're getting back into these games afresh, right? So which means you have to get down with the idea of what the strategy is for this game. You're not going to just breeze through battles in Octopath if it's anything like the first game. You have to plan your stuff out, which means you can't, I don't know, certain Final Fantasy games where it's just like, well, as long as my level is high, I'll be good. No. So... as long as you're okay with the fact that you might be playing this for the better part of a year with your time availability.
If it's good, if the music's
I think
good,
you could beat it in less than a year.
I'm thinking about it. Well, I mean, most people...
I don't think... Not to rag on you, Rob. I don't think it's the Sisyphean task that Persona 5 was.
That was tough. I mean, it was super enjoyable.
You look up that game and everyone's like, look, that's 100+ hours to do everything. Like... Octopath is not that involved. I think you could do it in 50, 60.
Something about...
But Pernell's right about the...
was good.
Pernell is right about, like, be prepared, like, to maybe get into, like, a 30-minute boss fight and lose. And then be like, all right, I need to reassess.
I could do that. Maybe.
But the system can be put to sleep.
The X factor is Christy. Like, it needs to, like, kind of be also, like, a good, like, backseat driver, like, kind of game to play too. Sure. I know she's got a thing against pixel art, so I don't know much about the game. I know
it's not pixel art; it's sprites.
It's gorgeous.
It's pixel art sprites, yeah, right.
But when I think of pixel art, I think like intentionally blocky in that sense in the current day concept of pixel art.
Because I wanted to get into games like Chrono Trigger. Like, I've loved Chrono Trigger, and I replayed that, and she watched me, and she's like, she can't get the emotional investment into these characters because of the way they look. And I'm like, I get that, because, like, you want to be able to see something and be like, I can put myself in that world. We grew up putting ourselves in that world. Mm-hmm. You know, that was what we had. So, anyway, let's move on here. Let's move on. So, let's listen to some music and talk about some of these games. Chris... as always, we ask our guests to start with the first track. He actually came up with a number of tracks. So
yeah, and I wasn't sure if like beforehand you were gonna like prioritize anything, but like I definitely know what I'm going to pick.
Yeah, it's up to you. It's totally up to you. And it's also nice having a set of picks because we're kind of like DJs here. Like if I play like a fast one, Pernell will play like a fast one. Or if he plays something that's kind of silly, maybe I start playing something silly too. So
wicked wow.
Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, then for my first pick, and I know it kind of goes against what we were just talking about with the panel, and you've kind of played this before, but my first pick is actually going to be Matoya's Cave from the original Final Fantasy, but it's the Pixel Remaster version.
Chris!
And it's composed by Nobuo Uematsu.
Yes, we are back. We're listening to Matoya's Cave from the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster. Composed and arranged by Nobuo Uematsu. Master Chris Wisner.
Sean Connery's moved into Matoya's cave.
Sean Connery's turned into that old British guy in old history shows who talks about old books and old things.
Richard Attenborough.
Old Chris.
And he's turned into Richard Attenborough. Look at the white mages as they cross the plains. They might die if not for the thief.
Wait a minute. Why would the thief keep them alive when they're the ones with the healing magic? Is he going to steal food from a stall or something?
No, it's a Final Fantasy 1, right? So you got like 4 white mages on the party. You're going to get killed. So.
But you said the thief.
Yeah, if you have a thief in your party, you can at least like fight back.
But the thief. You could have said the fighter.
It's the first thing I thought of.
The actual thing to do is to get a red mage, so it has the white and the black magic.
There
but
you
it can
go.
also fight back.
That's the ticket.
So I was listening to Retronauts actually recently it was all about Final Fantasy ROM mods and stuff.
ROM hacks.
ROM hacks, yeah. It was really interesting, and it made me. And they talked about how they actually fixed a bunch of stuff from Final Fantasy 1 because it was a super buggy game, and they said, "Oh yeah, half these spells didn't work."
Whoa!
And I'm thinking back, like Temper didn't do anything in the game.
I remember that spell.
Yeah, and I'm looking.
So there you go.
I feel like the last time I played that game, I must have been like 9, maybe 8 years old, and I'm like. And I would do all these spells and nothing would happen. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Sure.
Wait a minute. I wasn't just bad at the game and couldn't read. It was just that.
See, for me, the problem with that game was just the fact that Final Fantasy 1 was probably one of the only ones that wasn't a Saga game that made you buy your magic with cash.
Oh, yeah.
And they all had limited use because it wasn't MP yet. It was the magic tiers like in traditional D&D.
Yep.
So when it was like, okay, you got slots for 3 spells out of this spell group, they all cost more money than you have. What are you going to buy? I wasn't thinking, ooh, temp. No, temp. I know what I need. Cure, resurrections.
Yeah.
Base elementals.
Also, they didn't give you, they only had so many characters they could fit in, especially in English, because, in kanji or whatever they were using in Japanese, they could fit a lot more of that word. But in English, it was like, well, we're going to need 8 more characters. And they said, you got 4.
Get 4. Make it work.
Fire works.
I always remember the original Final Fantasy had the curse of, if you all, attacked, say, one enemy, and the prior person killed the enemy, your attack just went to waste.
Yeah, you're all targeting, a corpse. And you're like, okay, great.
Yeah.
Did you mince it?
Made no sense.
I hated that stuff. This is a great pick too. One, it's super classic, and I haven't actually heard these arrangements yet. Really, really good.
So I do want to ask this, Chris. Would you say that Final Fantasy 1 was your first RPG, J or otherwise?
So no, the first one for me was Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest, however you want to, tout it.
Nice.
But Final Fantasy 1 and Ultima Quest of the Avatar were the things that had the really big impact on me starting. I mean, I picked this track in particular because if you were to ever come to me and I need you to give me the one RPG song that has been with you throughout time, it defines an entire type of game, it's going to be Matoya's Cave.
Oh, yeah.
Because I remember being a kid, renting this game from Video Visions when it came out in that summer of, I don't remember what year that was, 91 or 90. I should have got my facts straight beforehand, but
I think you nailed it. It was one of those two.
This music was so magical to me. This melody, which has since become iconic. And even I had a friend. I don't play Final Fantasy 14, but I guess there's a Matoya's in that game, and they sent me that version of the music. Brought tears to my eyes.
Oh.
So it's always, this will be the song, RPG music is this.
That's a great song. That's just a great song.
And I didn't get terribly far in the original Final Fantasy when I first tried, when I first rented it. I think I got to the vampire before the Lich.
The big mini boss in the Earth Cave.
Yeah, so it took some going back to over time. But this is the track that's always going to jump out to me for, what would you recommend as a great RPG song? It's this.
I want to say, actually, I was in the same boat as you with that. Like, back when the game came out, this was back before I was really into the genre. And this was, like, the one that was like, hey, you didn't get the Dragon Warrior, but this seems to be working. But my cartridge was glitched, so I couldn't get past a certain point in the game. It just wouldn't allow it. It was busted.
That's a shame.
Like, you would shake the cart, and you could actually hear something in the cartridge.
Something rattling.
Like a screw or something.
I can hear my save file rattling around inside.
But eventually, I ended up replaying Final Fantasy 1 and completing it before our Final Fantasy panel at ASIN. I was like, this is a challenge for me. I'm going to beat Final Fantasy 1 before the panel because I've never done it. And I want to see if I can do it. And I always believed that the game was really, really hard. And it's not an easy game, but I did admit when I finished it, I was like, this isn't as hard as my brain was telling me, as long as you make a balanced party and take your time.
It's really, don't go in with a challenge not knowing how to play the game just yet.
Exactly.
And I also think, like, if you're playing it when it came out at that age, like, that entire sequence has this kind of Disney-esque element to it, where it's like the brooms are moving around, cleaning the rooms themselves, and Matoya's kind of like a wise ass to you. Like, she's really snarky. But like, it sticks in your head, like, when you experience it for the first time, because I was like, what is going on here? Like, there's brooms all over the place, and like, yeah, it's there. And this music just complements it so well.
Yeah, this is.
Whereas, I mean, like, Dragon Warrior had the same kind of, 8 or 7 songs in it, so you don't really get much variety, let alone, like, emotion.
It's true. But I did like the battles in Dragon Warrior when I played that as a kid.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, man, it's really good to start here, because this is really the beginning of it all. Yeah, it really feels like the beginning of it all. Anyway, so I'm going to move on to something in Purnell's wheelhouse.
Oh, I should check my wheelhouse then, because
this is an even episode, Rob. I'm going next.
Oh, but
I called you Rob. Purnell. But anyway, I don't know if you know this game. I went for games I clearly haven't played. I don't play a lot of RPGs. I'm not an RPG guy. But what I'm going to pick from is from the TurboGrafx 16.
Ooh.
This is one of the few I think it's a few super CD-ROM games for the PC Engine. So not the TurboGrafx. This is a game called Solid Force for the PC Engine CD, composed by Keishi Yonao, and this is background music 5. We're back. You're listening to music from the PC Engine CD game Solid Force. It's a solid track from Keishi Yonao, and this is background music 5 or in-game music 5. It's just they just have their tracks weren't really labeled. This one didn't have an official soundtrack, and this is one of those games where I was only able to get the music composer because I watched a long play on YouTube. And fortunately, the credits were in English. Because if they were in Japanese, I was never going to get it. And they were in English, and I just scrolled through to the end. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. This is a tactical RPG. It's very anime style. Super, super anime. What you would expect on the PC Engine. But very, very good music. Very, very classic RPG-sounding music. So you guys, did the turn-based guys get into...
Turn-based guys?
The turn-based fellas?
TBG!
Fellas, I mean, I should probably go. I mean, I'm assuming this is all the male-dominated, masculine, hyper-masculine panel. You guys were like, girls, no.
First and foremost, you are a knucklehead. Because I know you are, but the thing about it was, originally... we were all guys. It wasn't intentional. It's just how it flowed, Right. That's who talked about the stuff. But over time, I want to say it was actually Chris that suggested getting a friend of ours who was into the genre to come on board and be a part of the panel.
Okay.
And she was a good fit. Her name was Sarah.
Yeah, shout out to Sarah Turk. She was a friend of mine who had like a background in RPGs, and I was kind of that belief, like, there's a lot of dudes up here. Granted, it was a diverse group of dudes. We still should have some more diversity on this panel.
Yeah.
And she was with us for a couple years, and she had some great takes as well. So shout out to her. I haven't seen her in a while, but yeah,
RPGs are loved by everybody. I mean, I feel like it's story driven, especially the turn based gameplay. I feel it's more accessible to a wider audience of gaming ability.
I will say though that I feel that I might be wrong here. Let me know if you think otherwise. But for as old as our panel was, I want to say back when we started, it was still a time where people were comfortable cosplaying as different characters. But you didn't have a lot of people that were stepping up and being like, I want to talk games. I want to talk about the stuff. It's not that they didn't play them. It's just that it was still that landscape where it was kind of frowned upon to just be like, oh yeah, you're into that stuff too. Awesome. It was still more like, oh really? Name your favorite 5 RPGs on the SNES. That kind of nonsense. So as time went by, you started seeing more interaction where people would talk about. We would get people that would walk up and say, thank you for bringing up that game. No one really talks about it, and it was nice. We're seeing that diversity.
Our last Too Many Games panel, we talked a lot about Sonic with some of our people in the audience, some of the listeners in the audience, which was really nice to people that just wanted to come up and talk. And I was like, let's just talk to everybody because, especially in podcasting, can be kind of male heavy opinions, which is you don't want one side of everything. But anyway, I was getting to before I decided to make a dig at both of you for no reason was tactical RPGs. Did you guys get into tactical RPGs at all?
We got into everything.
Oh yeah,
we got into everything. Usually would get out my face. You know what you're talking about. The real McCoy is this game.
Okay, well then both of you, can you give me a classic tactical RPG that you both remember loving?
Chris first.
Shining Force.
Shining Force. I love Shining Force.
Funny thing, because I guess we're going to say the same game.
Which is sad.
Pretty much Shining Force.
Is it you two?
Yeah, I'm literally playing the third one right now. Shining Force was the jam, and we bonded over there.
Yeah, and last summer I convinced, I had to bribe Purnell with $20.
That's right, that was you. I forgot.
It worked though because now I have Shining Force CD on my Steam Deck to play.
Oh, good.
And I want to play more of that because apparently that was a port of the Game Gear games, was it? Shining Force CD? Yeah, so I can play with that.
I've heard a lot of that game. The Game Gear, who is it? It's Sakuraba? No, it's
No, it's a completely obscure name that I don't remember. Takanoichi, I think.
Yeah. Motowaki Takanoichi. I've heard a lot of his music of the Game Gear games, actually on the Legacy Music Hour before we started our show, and it's really, really good. 3 channels of square waves, and it sounds amazing.
So I will say back then it was Shining Force. That was my big one. It's like that Seinfeld meme. That's the best. But no, Shining Force. Dark Wizard, even though I didn't hold firm for me, I still have fond memories of it. Ogre Battle in a sense of it was not grid-based, but you were still pressing units forward and doing stuff.
Sure.
And then, of course, lastly was Tactics, Final Fantasy Tactics, which was the one where it said, hey, here's that job system that everybody loves now. We're bringing it to the forefront. Because before that, the only one that had a job system that I can recall was Final Fantasy V, which at the time we didn't even get in the States.
Yeah, we didn't even get that. Yeah,
Final Fantasy Tactics was a big one for me. Vandal Hearts on PlayStation 1 was another great isometric tiered style one. But Shining Force is always the go-to for me. Because people ask me this, that's where the Musashi comes from in my name. Is Musashi's a hidden character in the original Shining Force. So it's not a lot of people oh yeah, you love Brave Fencer. I mean, it was a great game.
But he ain't no Musashi.
It ain't no Musashi from Shining Force. This random character that you find just by finding a note on a wall who says, yeah, I'll join your party. And he ends up being a beast.
I will say one thing that you made a comment that made me think about one of the things I liked about the panel too, whether it was with us on the panel or people in the audience as well. So you'll name a game that most people don't know about or they don't talk about. In this case, we'll go with Vandal Hearts. And when someone named that game, I remember we both were like the two people that could bond over the fact that getting the Vandalier class was absolute garbage crap. Like, the actual class is amazing, but that last battle, you have to go up the pyramid, and you have to go around it. You can't just go up. It was the most time-consuming drag of nonsense. It was like, oh, we can talk about this.
That is classic video game, like gameplay, and classic video game difficulty escalation, where it's like they consider difficult gameplay to be right alongside what's going to take a long time. You know, like
slap that tedium on top.
Exactly. It's like tedious is not difficult. Tedious is just, okay, how much time do you want to spend on something? It's like the whole having to grind in games. You know, it's fun to a point. All right, I'm going to stop on that. But Purnell, now.
Is it actually me? Is it me?
I would love
to
hear some music that you've brought today that is not on my child's Fisher-Price playset. I'm really looking forward to the show.
It's your time to shine.
Yes, please.
Well, I'm not even sure why I picked this track. I have ideas. It'll probably come back to me in a second. It was late when I selected it. But this comes from a Dreamcast game. The track title of the game is called Evolution: The World of Sacred Device. And this is the battle theme from that game, composed by Masaharu Iwata. Welcome back. You're listening to the battle theme from the Ooh. Welcome back.
I just turned it down. It's fine.
From the Ooh.
From the Ooh.
Ooh, this is good. Ooh.
This is the battle theme from the game Evolution: The World of Sacred Device, originally released on the Sega Dreamcast with eventual ports to the GameCube, composed by Masaharu Iwata. And now I remember why I picked this track. One, because it's freaking great. But two, the Evolution holds an interesting spot for me in regards to like why I bought it, what it meant to me, whatever. Because when the new consoles come out, you usually find yourself in a group of other people speculating, what games are you most looking forward to on this new hardware, this special hardware? And the Dreamcast, for many people, was probably peak, like, I don't know, emotional attachment to a new console release over the years. And as an RPG fanatic, I was most looking forward to what are the RPGs going to be like on this thing. And there was a bunch of Japanese screenshots being shared about this game called Evolution. And it was pretty much a dungeon crawler with turn-based battles. But what stood out to me the most in the artwork was all the characters you could use. Like the main character is just a kid with goggles and a backpack with a giant fist in it. And
they're all these kind of big head anime style characters.
Yeah, it's just, but they were just, I like the concepts, because I want to say this was before I got to play Star Ocean, which had, Prestis, who also had a hand out of her backpack. But the giant hand from the backpack trope is just amazing to me. And then you also can fight with your butler, a girl with like a chain gun, a kid that had like a blade on its back and a rocket pack. It just flew around with this blade pack.
Please prove me wrong. The Dreamcast was light on RPGs.
It was light on RPGs. I wish I could prove you wrong, but I can't.
Because when the Dreamcast was released, I was like, oh man, I'm a fighting game player. All I wanted is fighting games, and boy, did I win out.
Oh, you made it like a bandit.
And everyone else lost.
Even with the kind of lack of RPGs, because there's maybe, like a dozen or so. Oftentimes, I will still say that like the Dreamcast is my favorite console of all time. just because of the power that it had. Like, I can remember sitting at home, getting it, playing Soul Calibur. I'm like, I have an arcade machine on my television.
Yeah, it felt
finally,
like that, didn't it?
And it was insane.
That was a great feeling.
like, not a ton of RPGs, but the ones that, like, Evolution 1 and 2 were great. Skies of Arcadia, probably the gem of the system.
I think Grandia 2 was on it.
Grandia 2.
Grandia 2. There was a Record of Lotus War RPG. What is it? That Time Splitters?
That poor game I took back to the store. But it was like a Time. I can't remember the name. It was driving me nuts. Right. Time
Splitters
something.
Or
It was like Time Stalkers. There it is. It was by Climax.
Stalkers,
Climax.
yes.
It was
because there was the guy who looked like.
No, it was Nigel.
Landstalker.
It was
it Nigel?
Yeah, it was him. Him and Friday. Were in the game, which is why I originally bought it. It's like, oh, Nigel's in it. Sold.
I never played it. But, unfortunately, not a lot of RPGs, but it had just a lot of great random stuff on it. And also, actually, one super obscure RPG I do want to shout out on the Dreamcast, Elemental Gimmick Gear.
Egg! I joke about that all the time. Egg! But, for me, the Dreamcast, I think that ended up ultimately making that system so special, well, aside from me loving Evolution, of course, is that was Sega saying, okay, this is our last chance. If we don't make the system work, we're out of the business, which unfortunately they did, console-wise, leave the business after this. But what that resulted in was some of the most experimental game releases ever made.
Yeah.
And people don't put a lot of value, a lot of people, I'm not going to say everyone, because some people do, clearly, because I do, don't put a lot of value in the concept of experimentation, especially in an age where everything's about money, and if a game doesn't sell, that could be your entire studio.
Right. See, what I loved about it was all of these arcade ports of shoot-em-ups, and fighting games, which for them was probably like, okay, the system's almost gone. We can probably do these a lot cheaper than, say, a whole new game for the system. But then, like, out here in the West, I'm like, if I can import them or get them in other ways, like, it made that system so much more valuable to me, well, as arcades were dying in the West.
See, so we got three cool cats on this episode with three cool takes on what made the Dreamcast awesome. What happened? What happened, man?
It's on my shelf behind me.
Not having software protection on their games is what.
That was a big one. That was a big one. That and PS2. Those two combined.
Yeah, everyone says the PS2, but honestly, like, I sold a lot of, like, my big, rare, important games, but I kept a little sleeve of all of my burns, all of my CD-ROM burns.
Well, I remember,
downloaded.
Like, remember when, were you at GameStop at that time, or were you not working there yet when the system came out?
I was there because I remember when the PS2 came out, and I was trying to persuade people who came in the store not to trade in their system, their Dreamcast, to get the PS2.
Yeah, but the thing is, the PS2 came out, I want to say, like a year and a half to even 2 years later. Maybe a year and a half, more likely. And even back when Dreamcast was coming out, they had already announced the PS2 was in the works. So people even then were like, why even bother buying this thing? The PS2's coming, and this is going to be better. I'm
that's
like,
right.
That's a long way to wait.
I was working at Funscape when the Dreamcast came out. We had like a huge big screen, like CRT TV, it was in the entrance to like this big like theater thing that we had. And we would all, after hours, my friend Darius, he would come in and bring in his Dreamcast and hook it up, and we would play Sonic Adventure, we'd play King of Fighters. That's all we played. Honestly, that's what got me into King of Fighters. It was great.
I can tell you a story about that exact thing because you're talking about PS2 and Dreamcast. So I remember sitting outside of a Target at 10 o'clock at night for 8 hours to get a PS2 on launch day. I was number 9 out of 39 people who got one.
Jesus.
And I kid you not, by 7 p.m. that night, I was playing my Dreamcast again.
Well, the game came out with Fantavision.
Yeah, the launch games were not great.
Yeah, Fantavision, S.S.H.
Armored Core 2, I think, was on it.
That was it a launch game?
Yeah. I remember my buddy Matt at the time did the same thing you did. He was outside of Target waiting forever, and he came home and he had Fantavision and Armored Core because we were playing Armored Core on the PlayStation forever. I remember because that was the night that my parents caught me smoking.
Was it worth it? Well, I am playing Armored Core, so I guess so.
I remember I called my dad. At 7 in the morning. I was like, I got a ticket. Come get it because it was gonna be like my birthday present or whatever. And he's like, all right, we'll get 2 games with it. So I got Tekken Tag Tournament and Kessen. I did not buy Fantavision because I'm like, what's this firework game?
Great soundtrack though, really good soundtrack.
It actually
Yeah.
recently got revived, believe it or not.
But yeah, I remember my dad coming home from work and he's like, why did I buy you this if you're playing Dreamcast again? I'm like,
It'll happen.
'cause
It'll happen.
The
It'll
games are better. And then I think
they're
like
coming soon.
And then I think a week later I got Ridge Racer Type 5.
Oh yeah.
Or Ridge Racer just 5 and like started to play it more.
It blows my mind too when we're sitting here talking about PS2 launch. Like I remember when the system came out and all the press was buzzing it. At the time, it had the most expansive launch catalog of any launch system ever made at that point. And when I went to go buy it, just like you bought 2 games and you didn't stick with them. You said you bought a few, didn't really stick with them. I bought S.S.H. That was the only game I even saw. I was like, this interests me in some way. And I played like one round of it. Was like, I hate the music in this game. It's licensed. I don't care.
I played that game for the music.
I turned it off. And then it wasn't until the Adventures of Cookie and Cream came out that the system even got used.
Wow.
It just collected dust until that game showed up.
Yeah, I think.
And I think PS2 was kind of notorious for, I want to say most magazines had already reviewed the entire launch lineup.
Yeah.
So like RPGs at launch that were like Eternal Ring and Evergrace, they got slaughtered by like video game publications. And I was like, I'm not buying these. Like, this game's made by the people who made Kingsfield. I suck at this.
I'm going. And then Squaresoft is making a beat 'em up game. It's called The Bouncer. The Bouncer. And I was
that
like,
darn game.
I was like, oh my god, that was a silly one.
A cinematic
Which
beat 'em up.
I've barely played any of the Bouncer, so I need to go back to it one of these days.
You bounced the bouncer
If you
from your lineup.
play it on your stream, I would rather watch someone else play that one.
Gonna make him suffer for views? Come on, man.
I'll be perfectly honest. It's on the short list, Rob.
Okay, good. Yeah, awesome. I
gonna
love to hear that. You got to play the. I remember it had the controls on the DualShock where it was like you press a button lightly and press it hard to get different attacks out of the system. So,
but as I'm an aggressive
I don't
player
know
who
how
just
that
wants
would
to
work
win,
on emulation.
I don't know. That'd be interesting. Maybe just.
I remember
every
I tried
attack's
doing-
heavy.
There was another game on PS2 that had that kind of type of input called Mad Maestro, which is just a rhythm
I remember that.
game. Yeah, but depending on how hard you hit the buttons, it would play louder or softer. And like I tried doing it on a ROM, didn't work at all.
Because that was one of those. It was a specific lineup of games that was coming out. It was that one, like Mr. Mosquito.
Mr. Mosquito, yeah.
It's so interesting that like that was something they built into the controllers, and they made it's ultimately the controller's more expensive, but like nothing ever used it because it's such a honestly, I think you're using your thumb. It's a terrible mechanic.
It's good for triggers though on controllers.
Triggers definitely. Anyway, we should move on. Chris, we're gonna roll back to you for some fresh music.
Sure.
We've been listening to Evolution for quite a while.
You could always slap a second track in there just to break it up.
I just might.
So since we were talking about tactical RPGs, and like I mentioned a little bit before, turn-based critics always kind of bringing more attention to obscure or random stuff that people might not know about. Also, me being a big Sega guy on the panel, this is Player Phase 3, Thought of the Holy, from Warsong or Langrisser, depending on what region you're in, and composed by Noriyuki Iwadare and Isao Mizoguchi.
No, we're gonna let this one go around one more time. I'll hear it one more time.
Welcome back. You are listening to Player Phase 3, Thought of the Holy, from Warsong for the Sega Genesis, composed by Noriyuki, Iwadare, and Isao Mizoguchi.
This is fantastic music. I mean, this is really, really what I love about RPG music. It's the turn-based RPG music where it's got to be so energetic and so rockin' while you're just waiting your turn and watching these little things take their turns, you know? Oh, it's so good.
I think the big key to successful battle music, because that's what this is in the game, like, you need something that's like, you can stand to listen to on a loop for an extended period of time.
Yes.
Because like if it's just like a handful of notes, it's going to get boring and droning real fast. But when you have these kind of, Sega had this awesome sound chip set to it to make these kind of pulsating, driving tracks that are especially pairing like Phantasy Star.
Yeah.
But yeah, and this is a great example early on in the system of like, yeah, I could just bop my head to this and fight a bunch of dragons and knights and all that for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. What Sega was good at was creating home console hardware that was based off of their arcade machines, so that they could bring these arcade games home. I mean, even the Sega Dreamcast was based on the Sega Naomi board, which was used in all the arcade games at the time. The Sega Genesis was the same way, right down to the sound chips in the system, which was the YM2612. And it's interesting because like you think of using that sound chip for like fighting games, for racing games, all that sort of stuff. But then when you get to RPGs, you want like kind of a bigger orchestral kind of melodic sound or cinematic sound. And these composers like Iwadare and Masaharu Iwata, like they were just bringing in this, Motowaki Takenouchi. They're just bringing this enormous sound with this very synthy sound, like an enormous arrangement with a very synthy kind of sound. And to me, it sounds flawless. I can listen to this all day long.
And I gotta say, like, I'm just glad that it's funny, hilariously coincidental too, that this is Noriyuki Iwadare because as you already know, if not just from generally knowing me, but also from the episode where we featured him, I'm a huge sucker for his jams. Pretty much any game he's done music for, I've wanted to play or try. This game right here that's on the table is going back to the store today. And one of the reasons why I bought it was specifically because he composed it.
This is Loop 8. Or I saw it Loops.
Loop 8 Summer of Gods. Yeah. Noriyuki Iwadare was the composer for that game. And I was like, I will grab that. I want to hear more of his stuff. The game ain't so good, though. The game ain't very good at all. Which makes me sad because I can't recall the last game aside from this that he composed for. If you can, let me know. I'll go look into it and play it.
I'm not sure. I mean, definitely a contender for somebody who would be in like the VGM Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. He is a master of VGM.
Clout. But yeah, like I can't recall recent stuff that he's done outside of like you mentioning that.
Yeah, because and funny you said it too, because this is the month of Masters of VGM. So heck, maybe that'll probably be our Patreon topic too. So
yeah, if we're around, I mean, I think I got some vacation plans. It might end up being in July.
Oh,
yeah, it's gonna be in July.
Yeah, but I definitely agree. But I definitely agree that Noriyuki Iwadare fits on the Masters of VGM roster for sure. So you nailed that one. But this track is a freaking bop. And I know it's got me hoping that they at least kept access to this original music in the Switch port they did. Because I want to hear this in the game. I don't want to hear the modernized version because I'm not feeling it. I got a feeling it won't quite hit
there's
the
a
notes.
lot, and there's a lot of great tracks on that Warsong OST. So I mean, give it a spin sometime. But yeah, I would hope that they still had like I'm down to hear an arrangement or an orchestrated version, but also give me the original 16-bit sound because it's just so good.
And it kind of kills me too. Like, let's be honest here. For all these like games that are like not remixes, but like remasters or like updates of old games, they don't generally take up so much space that they couldn't just offer a switch between the old and the new tracks.
No, but I would love to have like a lot of like this music digitized, where it's like you remember hearing this music through your TV as a kid, or even right now through headphones. But to have this like bumping out of like my sound bar and subwoofer upstairs, like that would be really cool. Really
even including it just as a way of preservation would be ideal. because I always remember like a few years ago, was it when the first like Wonder Boy remake came out? You could just hit select and it would switch back and forth between the soundtracks. Like, I love that.
Yeah, that was one of the most amazing like revisits to a game ever. It gave you the old music and the old graphical style too. Like it was like bloop. It was like, how has no one done this before?
More of that, please.
It was amazing. So, but yeah, it's so good. Now I got to boot this up when I get home. We'll see.
All right, Pernell, we're back to you.
Okay.
Let's pull up your little list of tracks. Your bag of tricks.
I love how I'm bringing this up as if I don't know what the track is, but it's a long name. And it's a track that I'm surprised I haven't featured on the show. Like, I went and looked and couldn't find it. So if it's been played again, just know I did my due diligence. This comes from the game Etrian Odyssey 3. And the track title is called, I love the name, Hoist the Sword with Pride in the Heart. Composed by Yuzo Koshiro, or as my text editor chose, Yuzo Koshiro.
Yuzo
Koshiro.
Yuzo. Don't even play. Don't even play, bro.
Welcome back. You're listening to Hoist the Sword with Pride in the Heart from the game Etrian Odyssey 3, released on the Nintendo DS, but now with a port across the spectrum called within the Etrian Odyssey HD collection.
This did catch my eye. It's a bunch of them too, right?
Yeah, first 3 games, not the Untolds, composed by Yuzo Koshiro. I love the Etrian Odyssey series. It goes without saying, but this is a fantastic piece. And anything that Yuzo Koshiro puts out is just a standout track. But the thing that makes me really like this is the fact that it was going for a classic style of gameplay, being that Etrian Odyssey revived the concept of like mapping out dungeon exploration as you go and making notes of things that you want to go back and double check on.
Very old school D&D, honestly, where like all the players are like, they're mapping it. The game is in their head. You know, there's no map in front of them, so they're figuring it all out.
And I adored it for that, and that was what got me into it. But he went that extra level of like sticking with a retro vibe by being like, I'm going to compose all this on, I want to say it was FM composition.
Yeah, this is all FM synthesis.
So even though they've had Etrian Odysseys go up to Etrian Odyssey 6, including the Untold games that got remastered on the 3DS, I want to say that I love the first 3 games OSTs more than those, specifically because of how well he utilized the FM synthesizer, with the third game being the standout of the bunch. Never finished the third game, though, because abundance of choice ruined me with this title. And also, it's a really difficult game. The first major boss where this track plays is like catfish. My favorite food became my most malicious monstrosity of an adversary. And it broke me until I eventually beat him. But then you get subclassing. And once it became a thing where you can take a class and then give it a subclass set of abilities, but you can't change the subclass, you're stuck with it. I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to optimize my people. Also, dying in this game is very painful. I'll come back to it.
So I saw this advertised on PlayStation on the PlayStation Store, and I was looking at like trying to find a new game to get into. Is this something? Knowing me, would I be into this?
I will say one condition. Are you okay with the fact that you will likely die due to exploration failure? And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying that that's baked into the game.
Like I made a left when I should have made a right. Would have never known otherwise.
Not so much that as you might say, take a left, walk into an enemy that you probably should have avoided, and he wipes your party.
I played Persona. I think I could do that. Well, I've done that plenty of times at Persona.
Also, you'll find yourself in a scenario where it's like you're limping back to like the exit of the dungeon because you happen to forget to bring a thread, and your characters are like you're out of all their stuff.
If it's a good price point, maybe I'll try it out. Again, I'm looking for turn-based games. This episode's coming at a great time for me.
Yeah, I feel like the experience of these games speaks volumes for like the quality of how much you can get out of a minimal, presentation. Because Etrian Odyssey 1, not this one, because again, I didn't finish this one, but Etrian Odyssey 1, at the beginning, all you get is, you are explorers. This is a labyrinth made of the World Tree Yggdrasil. Explore the thing. And while there ends up being a story that threads through it, you don't come across it till darn near the end of it. And when you get there, the biggest surprise is, wow, this game has a plot.
All right, so this is telling me right now maybe this isn't the game for me because I'm
maybe not the first one.
It sounds very ambiguous.
Yeah.
The second or third is different.
Okay.
I would say
if the price point's good, maybe I'll give it a shot then. Maybe.
Yeah, because it's more about.
Okay, here's a question for you, because none of us have seen the port, right?
Yeah, the new one.
So
I do know a little about it, but I haven't played it.
This is a DS game. Like, what was used with the stylus, and was it just a dual screen situation?
So apparently, you can press a button and half your screen becomes the map.
Is that what I mean? But in the original game,
in the original game, it was half. One screen was the game. The bottom screen was your map. And you use the stylus to actually draw your map.
Oh, it's you draw your own map.
Yeah, you do all of the work. You draw the map. You put notes on the board saying, "Come back here when I find X key." You do all kinds of cool stuff, and that was what I liked about it. I was extremely meticulous with my mapping. I want to say at one point I got an error saying you've used up the allowance of the map for this floor. Delete something.
I like that. They did that in Bloodstained, Circle of the Moon, or the Castlevania Metroid.
You're talking about the revival where they had Bloodstained Ritual of the Night?
Yeah, Bloodstained Ritual, the one I played. Anyway, the map is really, really big, but it allowed you to put like markers on the map, but it had like different colors, so that I could put multiple markers on that. I couldn't draw on it, but I could at least have different colors and shapes. I can place them all over the map. Like, I want to come back here for this. Blue means I probably need another item for that.
And I'm going to tell you something, actually, since you mentioned that. And this factor is something I was going to bug Chris about later. Not at this point, but I'll bug about later because it came up in a social group dialogue we're in. But, the idea of, after playing games like that offer mapping and the ability to actually just at least put points of interest on it for yourself.
Yeah.
When I play a game, purchased or reviewed, that has a mini-map that builds out, and it does not give you that ability, despite having you intend to come back and do things, ding it. Ding it. Ding it. Ding it. You have to. It's like, I feel like knowing that the feature exists in a game, that someone's done it, I feel like by not including it, it's almost not respecting the player's time at that point.
Right.
It's like saying, hey, this has a wall that's got green goo on it. I don't know anything about it, but I'll come back later. Sure. 2 hours later, you forgot about green goo. You get an ability. Whoa, what other walls had green goo? Nice if I could check my map. No, can't check it.
I was playing through Super Metroid last year, and I was getting those feels, Pernell, when I would get to a door that was locked, and I'd have to backtrack, and I'd be like, well, crap, where was that locked door? Because it's on... all I know is blank spots on my map, but that's all I've got. You know, and so that's
as long as the game is doing like the mapping itself, I'm fine with it. Because you sitting here talking about, oh, you got to draw the map out. Look, I'm not playing gold box Dungeons and Dragons PC games from the late 80s.
Yeah.
You know, Pool of Radiance or whatever. I don't want to draw my map. I want it done for me at this point. I'm all for the markers, though. Like, yeah, give me a thing where I can highlight this room red because there's a chest that needs a key in it. But no, if you want me to get out, like, you know, graphing paper and
I will say, in my defense
I love
of
that.
statement,
I love that. The idea of you got the graph paper out. You should have like on your stream like an actual camera on your graph paper.
There's people I follow who do that. No, I can't do it.
The last game I did that
so
with was
mad.
Persona 1. I actually graphed out maps for Persona 1.
Yeah, and you need to in Persona 1 because those maps are confusing.
Yes,
as
they
are the old like the Shin Megami games on like the Famicom and Super Famicom and all that.
Yeah, those things were monsters.
Well, I'm going to turn this track down. I'm turning it all the way down, and we're going to get into the part of the show that we call the bonus round.
Bonus round. Come on, baby. It's time to jam.
I wonder if anyone like people like to listen to the end of the show to hear your words of wisdom. I wonder if anyone's like, oh, I wonder how Purnell's going to announce the bonus round this time.
Someone just needs to compile a super edit of all of Purnell's bonus round.
You think it should be me because I save all these episodes, but I don't. I don't save any of them. I put them in the cloud and I cross my fingers and hope for the best. Anyway, the bonus round is where we play covers, arrangements, and remixes on our theme, and there's plenty of covers and arrangements, all sorts of good stuff out there. Chris,
No shortage of them.
Why don't you kick us off?
For sure. So for my bonus round pick, this is Critical Clash 2 from Octopath Traveler 2, and it is covered by Lame Genie and originally composed by Yasunori Nishiki.
right, Chris, why don't you take us home on this one?
Absolutely. So again, you were listening to Critical Clash 2 from the game Octopath Traveler 2, covered by Lame Genie and originally composed by Yasunori Nishiki. And I want to tell you, so when Octopath Traveler 2 originally came out, it was very difficult to find people sharing the music online for probably obvious Square reasons. So like I was just kind of digging around on YouTube and like listening to like a lot of lo-fi covers. And then this popped up. And I was just like, what is going on? Because for a second I thought like, I don't know if you know who Marty Friedman is. He used to be a guitarist in Megadeth, and now he does a lot of like anime covers and like J-pop covers. He's a shredder. But I'm like, is Marty Friedman covering like Octopath music? And no, it was these Lame Genie guys, which I know Purnell had mentioned to me before, and I think you said like they're fans of the show, so shout out to you dudes. But this track rips.
It's really good. This is really good.
The original, like the actual song, like we were talking about while the music was playing, a lot more horns and trumpets, so it's replaced by guitars in this. But, you know, I think I talked about earlier, you want music that you can listen to on repeat, because some of these boss battles will take you 30, 40... I had a boss battle that took an hour. And you want music that's going to sound consistently like driving you for a loop.
And I'm going to tell you something.
This is definitely one of them.
Like, when people like Chris told me that boss battles run for as long as they do, I had the hubris in me. I ain't gonna lie. I was like, these are just people. They're not optimizing their party builds. I can cut that down. No, I can't. You really can't. They're long battles. You might not necessarily notice the time going by until it's over because you're deeply engrossed into it. But they are lengthy fights. But they're good lengthy fights. Just when you lose, it hurts that much more because you got to do it again.
Oh yeah.
And I tried to minimize losing as much as possible. That's why I would do as much grinding as I did in the game. But yeah, like there were a couple Sundays where I was like, what time is it? I just spent 54 minutes fighting the Scourge of the Sea or whatever. Like this is
that's daunting to me.
But I'll say this, it flies by.
I will ask you this though.
It flies by.
This was one of the games you streamed. Did you ever have a scenario where you lost a long-term boss battle, and how did people react to that?
Whose story was it? I think it was in Casty's Chapter 2. There's a thing where you have to fight like a group of thieves. Mm-hmm. And I fought, I think thief's name is Pluck. I fought her for like 34 minutes, and then when you do a certain point, she kicks it into overdrive, she wiped me.
Oof.
So 34 minutes just wasted. And this was like I'd already been streaming for like 3.5, 4 hours. I was like, we're done.
Shut it all.
And like I think Kristen GameFan44 was like in the chat at the time because it was just like, oof, rip.
That's tough. Yeah, because when you're watching this stuff, you get invested because like you're well, first of all, you're pulling for the streamer, and then you're invested in the story and the gameplay. You're like, I want this guy to win. To see that happen, that's demoralizing.
Literally because of that battle was me like, I'm gonna have to grind more. I'll grind off stream because nobody wants to watch me just wander around for a few hours. But yeah, I purposely was getting my characters 10, 15 levels higher than the requirements to avoid that.
That's the way you do it.
Yeah, because it was frustrating to put all that time in, like, oh yeah, I'm going to end on finishing this chapter today, and then you don't finish it. Like, okay, well, next stream, guys, we're going to start the stream with me fighting this, pain that wrecked me.
And that also gives me some good feedback, too, because I've always wondered, like, how do you stream a game where grinding is baked in? Because people watch you running in a circle, like maybe not so entertaining.
Yeah, you read Twitter for a while. You can read the news online.
Yeah, like because I've been since I've gotten back into streaming, pretty regularly. I've made it a point to like any grinding I'm going to do is going to be off stream, just because like I don't look at that as being like content that people need to see.
Yeah.
So I'll build my streams around. Don't do unique stuff. Just do, these battles or whatever, because I did a lot of grinding in Final Fantasy VI just to make things easier when I streamed that. But yeah, like it's planning stuff around that, so the stream is very dedicated to
progress.
We're doing this person's story, we're making progress. Let's hope for the best.
That's
So
a good
I
way to do
I kept my death count to like a minimum.
I like that.
while
That's
doing
good planning too. It's good advice.
It really is.
Yeah.
Like I'm genuinely taking that advice to heart because I have actually wondered how that works. So
I think the only point was there's a point in Throne's story where she was a little bit under level, and there was like a character where it was like you had to be level, I think 45 to do something, and I was level 39, and this is in the middle of a stream, so I'm like, well, you guys got 30 minutes because I'm gonna go to this island and fight monsters, so I can do like it was annoying, but it was like at least it wasn't 4 hours of I gotta make up the lost time. So. But yeah, plan out if you're going to stream RPGs. I think plan them out, and don't be afraid to grind offline. So it just makes things smoother.
You're here to that.
Interesting. All right, Pernell, we're on to you for your bonus round.
All right, my sweet bonus. We can't do turn-based combat and not have a rep from the Megaton series in my lineup here. But this is one of the spinoff games, of course, and this is the game that made me buy a Saturn, despite us not getting it in the States. This is from the game Devil Summoner. This is the boss theme from that game, covered by a spectacular band / guitarist himself, S.S.H. welcome back. You're listening to the boss battle theme from the game Devil Summoner, released originally on the Sega Saturn, covered by S.S.H. This is a game that I've never played, but it holds a place in my heart of general frustration and bait and switch because I learned about it because of Game Fan magazine. They had a knack for publishing information on a lot of import games and things that were going to eventually get in the States. And they had this screenshot of a game called Devil Summoner that was coming soon to the Sega Saturn, and it was just two skeletons with really red eyes, like just face up on the screen, and then the health bars for 6 characters were at the bottom, and a really cool font style. And I was like, this looks awesome. You fight these like really creepy monsters, and the font for these health bars is intriguing to me. I want this game. And then I read up on it a little bit more when they talked about it. They talk about, a modern day world where you summon demons to fight and such like that. I was like, I want this game. And when it came time to have to choose my game console, it was like, okay, well, should I get a Saturn? I mean, we could get 2 PlayStations in the house, but that seems kind of weird. You know what? Let me look this up. I'm going to look like, screw it. I'm going to do it. Devil Summoner's coming out. I'll buy that. And I know Devil Summoner's coming. I'll buy that too. We never got Devil Summoner. And that was because back in the era where censorship was like very rampant. ESRB was still fairly new.
Yeah,
so
it was still, because it was so new, it was very important to these publishers to make sure they were accessible to as many people as possible.
Now,
any like religious iconography, they're like, nope, you got to get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
That's all a Persona. Get rid of it.
And I know what you might be thinking, listener. You might be going, but Persona came out on the PlayStation back then, and my answer to you is, you should go back and play Persona and see how many things they changed and tweaked and removed because they were trying to get under a certain ratings board.
Like literally changing the race of a character.
Yep. Wow. They went nuts in that game. And to this day is considered one of the most notoriously bad translations / ports. Mm-hmm. And not ports. Translation / localizations to be ever done. Ever.
But you still love this game.
I still love it. But you also got to figure back then, though, I didn't know what that stuff. I didn't know they made all those changes. It was just the game I bought, right? But then when you start to learn things more when people on the internet are talking, you start to discover what they actually removed. Because, again, this is back when there was user forums and stuff. It wasn't. We didn't have much in the form of Reddits and stuff. It was Usernet posts.
And there wasn't much of a video game journalist team or world of people reading it and writing about it. There wasn't so much of that, and if there was, it was just to promote specific games, and that was about it.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I remember for so long holding working designs in such high regard, and then this community of people were like, did you know that they changed this and put in all this pop culture stuff to the point it wasn't the Japanese having a sense of humor, it was just these random people putting all this stuff in the games.
But I will say to this day, though, I'm one of the few people who are like, you know what? I'm cool with that change. There's certain they're balancing sliders. They can take that and go to heck with it.
It's also important to remember that humor doesn't really translate across languages very well, and as well as pop culture references and things like that too. So it's important for a really faithful translation, you're going to miss out on that stuff.
But I'll go one step further.
Creative translators, why they can do that.
But I'll go one step further, though. There was no humor. In the original, there was no humor. It was the equivalent of going to a guy and being like, I like this town. We've got water. And that's the dialogue. Versus the translation that they gave us where it's like, man, one day I'm going up on the Wheaties box. I just keep running or whatever nonsense they put in there. And you read it and you go, that sounds really stupid. But you talk to every villager because you want to hear what they all have to say. If they all talked about how cool their town was because they had water, I wouldn't care. Which is why a lot of official full translated games, and you could talk to other people, they might not admit it until you press them on it, but ask them how many of them actually go up and talk to every single townsperson.
Just to see what crazy stuff they'll say.
Well, that thing, they don't have crazy things to say. So they'll be like, I don't really care about all this.
Yeah, I'm saying, but you did because you wanted to see all the crazy stuff.
I want to see the crazy stuff. The singers in the towns, I need to look into that, but I question if that was in the original game too. Every town having a notoriously bad singer, that is genuinely gold. That is translation gold. I don't know. Working designs.
There is like a whole subset of like the translation community that are like unworking designs games.
Oh yeah, Joe and Five Dog is all about that. And I'm like, nope, keep it. I like my translations.
But you are right that going up and talking to some of these townsfolk in the like they're like, I like bread. The bakery has good bread in town, and it's not like you can buy the bread. They're just telling you random facts about this village that serve no purpose.
It's got to make the world more real.
You know what also makes the world more real?
Bread makes it real.
Wheaties.
Bread and Wheaties. Maybe that's
Cheerios.
What it was. He took the bread, turned it into Wheaties. That's because it's what Americans know. American kids don't know bread.
The secret ingredient to that baker is Wheaties.
Well, for more information on the bonus round, come to rhythmandpixels.com. We'll have links to the artists' SoundClouds and Bandcamps, where you can download and buy the music and support these artists.
Poor Rob. He's like... It's not my fault. It's the man's fault.
It's the internet's fault, right?
It's the internet's fault.
Welcome back, everybody.
It's the internet's fault.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us on this episode 36-8 of Rhythm and Pixels. Our turn-based critics with the turn-based critics, I mean.
Myself and my friend Chris Wisner.
Yeah, that's right.
Be nice one day if we did have a bit of a revival someday. Or even just sitting around just chatting the breeze.
I'd be down.
It'd be fun.
I mean, that could be a podcast in its own right. Or like a Twitch show.
The problem is we'd have to actually agree on a schedule between like 5 to 6 people.
Yeah, all over the country.
2, I feel like a number of our mindsets have shifted, whether in the amount of time we spend playing games or what we remember or even just how curmudgeonly we may have become as we've gotten older.
It may be hard to do over the internet when, like, you know, you guys called yourself the turn-based critics, but I'm sure you didn't take turns talking.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
We did at points. I mean, that was what the moderation was for, but after a certain point, it was a lot of, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong. So.
But it was always in good fun, too.
Yeah.
Like I stood by the belief that even if you, and that actually maybe will be the end, remember, but even if you genuinely liked something that I loathed, and I said, that game sucked, that game is horrific, it was never me saying, your taste in games is bad because you don't like good games. It was more like me saying, my perspective is not good. We're having a dialogue about this. So now it's for me to tell you that the game is rough. So hit me back with why it's good. Shut me down.
Yeah.
That's the kind of dialogue we were having. But I'm never going to...
There's always being very aware of the subjectiveness of gaming. Like, I might think this is hot garbage. Mm-hmm. But if you think it's, an ice cream sundae, then go for it. It's all yours.
Yeah, we do that all on our show, where it's like we may not have like the similar tastes in music and things like that, but like we always respect each other's choices. We'll never come back and be like, "Oh man, you played that track?
What is rough." And that ties into a little bit what we did with Mustin when he was on the episode. We were talking about Breath of the Wild, yeah. Like, and that goes for most people out in the ether.
Yeah. He's like, you know what? I didn't like it. And I was like, cool.
And that's cool. Like, never assume that your opinion on a game is the de facto opinion on a game or anything that is subjective. Yeah. If the only that could be straight up fact is if it's in a factual book. This game sold this many units. That's a fact. This game is unequivocally unflawed. That is an opinion.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, Chris, can you, in your opinion, tell our listeners where they can find you online?
Absolutely. So you can find me on Twitch at Musashi219, and I've got links to all my other social media on there. But yeah, mostly streaming RPGs. I'm currently working my way through Live Alive HD. I've never played Live Alive before. And then after that, going to knock out some... I don't have a ton of experience with the Zelda games, so I'm going to be doing Minish Cap and Ocarina of Time.
Ooh.
And a couple other things, like I've wanted to play through Racing Lagoon for a long time. It's the Squaresoft Car PG. I got an English translation by a fan group. So, like, a few things that are on the horizon for me.
That's exciting. I know all I know about that one is its soundtrack, which is also really sweet. So,
yeah, like... If it wasn't for Ridge Racer Type 4, Racing Lagoon would be the best racing games on the system.
That's pretty amazing. Well, all right, we'll have links to all of that on our website and actually in the show notes too. But before everyone goes, if you're interested in getting a look at the track listing of this episode and of all of our episodes and access to all of our episodes and past episodes, go to the website
www.rhythmandpixels.com.
We can't afford the third W anymore, Pernell.
Hey, I said, yeah, we can. We got a fourth
It's
W.
www.rhythmpixels.co.uk.
Worldwide water closet.
That's all we could get. Yeah.
.gov.
.gov. We're .gov now. You come to us for all of information on the wildfires. You can also check us out on. If you want to get in contact with us, send us an email. Please send us an email.
rhythmpixels@hotmail.com.
We check other things here, and comments and things like that. But we love the email. Email is the best way to do it. It
feels nice to read them.
Which is very nice to read them. We read all of them. We may not respond to all of them, but we definitely read all of your emails. You can check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/rhythmandpixels. We have all of our episodes put up there. They've all got timestamps, so if you want to skip ahead to a favorite song or something, or to hear our dialogue about something or other, go ahead and that's a great place to do it. We also have a 24/7 8-bit and 16-bit live stream on YouTube, so check that out as well. And I've also been helping Hammock over at KVGM, The Last Wave. His YouTube station now is a 24/7, nothing but chill and jazzy and amazing video game jams from all consoles. He's got every track from every episode up to like the middle of the year 2020. It's a lot of music, and he's trying to upload every track to it. It's a lot. I'm like, dude, just take a break.
But he's passionate. Let him run while the passion's hot.
So that server, which is an old Dell Optiplex, right down there by Purnell's foot, that's kicking that thing out. And also, if you want to support the show, the best thing you can do is go to Patreon, patreon.com/rhythmandpixels. As a member there, at all levels, you get access to monthly live-streamed episodes. You get access to all of our episodes ad-free. And at higher levels, you get cool stuff like mugs and stickers. We got exclusive T-shirts. And we also like to say your name and thank you at the end of every episode. So members at the highest levels, we like to thank Brooke Poole, Corey Clark, and Khalid. Thank the three of you so very much. Thank you to Kristen, GameFan44, Martyrus, host of the ReVGM podcast, Mike Myers, Bastion8060, Super Game Station, find them at www.supergamestation.com, Antmaster, the Antmaster, Brian Pitt, Cameron Worma, Carlos Kung Fu Carlito, host of the Heroes 3 podcast, Chris Wisner, a.k.a. Musashi219.
The wise guy!
Hey, he's here. Thank you very much. Christopher Shenstrom, host of Gameable Audio, Chuck Kowalski, Davey Cakes, David Good, David Taylor, Enchilada Brigol, Harold Howard, Triple Jeff, Justin Schneider, host of XVGM Radio, Keith Shusterman, Michael Bridgewater, Rage Cage, host of the VG Emporium podcast, Reinhard Silkova, Romancing Sagat, Sleepy S'more, Steve Miller, Taco, and Zach Thornbach. So thank you, all of you, very much, and many, many more for continuing to support our little program. It helps keep the files hosted, keeps us in fresh gear, got new headphones, and going to conventions to present the show.
And it's always a good time. It's always appreciated that you guys actually are supportive of our show. And just, it's always nice to be like, hey, wow, people are appreciative of this. People still appreciate listening to this show.
Yeah, thank you very much for
I'm very appreciative of it. So I mean, I love tuning in. It was every week, not every other week.
Yeah, we'll get back to it. It's hard right now.
Oh no, you got priorities that are way more important.
So, but yeah, we were weekly. So this is the first year that we've gone every other week. So for those of you who are sticking with us, thank you very, very much for sticking with us. Maybe it's easier. Maybe it's easier to get through a whole episode before we record a whole other 3 hours.
And for those who are thinking like, who knows if we may not or might not make it back, I'll tell you this. Rob, due to shifting priorities, was the primary reason for the change. And not me, but he has been the one that's been like, I want to get back on the weekly schedule.
I want to.
Like, he actually wants to shift back.
I like to do things, but work's busy and life is a little busy right now. But as the little guy gets older, things will equalize, and bedtimes will equalize.
And I'll admit, the one thing that's going to be sad about that for me, as the person who's not getting the sleepless nights, is that as he gets older and Rob's free time's coming back, I won't be able to go up to him and go, baby, anymore, because apparently that's become my thing. I walk in the house, he's holding his son. I'm like, baby!
He smiles. He loves it. He
really does. Yeah. It makes me happy, which is why I keep doing it.
He came over yesterday, and he was like, oh, my God. It was great. I loved it. Anyway, thank you all so much for listening to the show. Thank you again, Chris, for coming on and joining us. I would love to have you back again if you ever feel like coming back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just hit us with a topic.
Yeah, ping us with a topic, and you're on the schedule. So Thank you very much. Thank you all of you for listening to the show. We'll see you next time on Rhythm and Pixels. My name is Rob Nichols.
And I'm Pernell.
We'll see you next time.
And remember, I already kind of used it earlier, but I'm just going to state real quick. Everyone's a critic, including reviewers, including your mom, including your dentist, including your doctor. Everyone's a critic, and everyone's got opinions on things, and we love to voice them. We're freaking humans. That's what we do. But the important part about that is if you're going to voice your opinion, give it some level of substance. Don't just blurt out hot takes because hot takes get you nowhere but a griddle. Instead, focus on conveying the actual points out. Make it so that if someone listens to your take on something, even if they don't agree with what you have to say, they can understand where you are coming from, because that's the only actual value that comes from opinions. It's informing people. That is it. Otherwise, it's just making people mad at each other for no reason.
I can't believe Pernell called my mom out like that. I have a lot of hot takes.
Every time.
He's just trying to get those clicks.
Get that
specifically one extra click from your moms.
Get that internet clout moving up. So.